My husband and I had a secret name picked for our baby. The day she was born, his mother announced a different name to the entire family. It was printed on the cake, embroidered on the clothes. I confronted my husband, and he said, "She earned this right." I wept. That night, I checked the birth record submission portal and found. When I was pregnant with our daughter, my husband Caleb and I picked her name together. We did it sitting on the living room floor, me eating sour candy and him rubbing my swollen feet. He said he wanted something modern, soft, something that felt like a name you sing, not shout. I told him I liked Everly. He smiled and said, "That's it." We never wrote it down. It was just between us. Our little secret. We didn't tell his mom, even though she asked. A lot. She'd corner me at family dinners with a glass of wine in hand and say, "You're not telling me because you know I'll hate it, right?" She laughed when she said it, but there was always a sharp edge to it. I just smiled and said, "We're keeping it a surprise. Her name is Patrice. You need to know that. Because Patrice doesn't let things go. Ever." She'd already taken over our baby shower. We wanted a small barbecue in our backyard. She booked a country club and invited 83 people, most of whom I didn't know. She called it a gift to us, but it felt more like a warning shot. I didn't push back much. I was tired and huge, and honestly, I thought she was just excited. When I went into labor, it all happened fast. We got to St. Mary's Hospital in Charlotte just after midnight. My water had broken on the couch, and Caleb kept saying we'd laugh about it someday. But there was no laughing when the contractions wouldn't stop and the baby's heart rate dropped. The doctors moved quick. Emergency C-section. I don't remember much after that. Just the bright lights, the cold, the nurse squeezing my hand and telling me, "You're doing great." Then blackness. When I woke up, I was in the recovery room with N4 in my hand and stitches burning across my belly. Caleb was holding our daughter. He said, "She's perfect. You did amazing." I reached out, touched her cheek, and whispered, "Hi, Everly." Then the door opened. Patrice walked in holding a giant cake. Pink. Frosted roses. Glitter letters. "Welcome baby Grace," it said. Behind her, Caleb's sister had a camera out. His dad was holding balloons. His mother started crying and said, "Oh, she looks just like Grace." I thought they had the wrong room. I looked at Caleb, confused. He didn't say anything. Just smiled like he was embarrassed. "Wait," I said. "What is this?" His mom came over and kissed my forehead. "I'm so glad you came around on the name. You made an old woman very happy." I tried to sit up but the pain was too much. "We didn't pick that name," I said. Patrice froze. Then she laughed. "Oh stop, Caleb already told us. Grace Marie. It's perfect." I turned to Caleb. "You told her that?" He didn't look at me. "It just made sense," he mumbled. "She's done a lot for us." I thought it would mean something to her. I couldn't believe it. "You told her our baby's name before I woke up? Before I even saw the birth certificate?" "She earned this," he said. "Like that made it okay." "She earned it? By paying for our crib? By bossing me around for months? That's what my daughter's name was worth?" I didn't cry right away. I just stared at the cake. Later that night, while Caleb slept next to me, I pulled his laptop out of the side pouch of his bag. I logged into the North Carolina birth certificate submission site using my hospital ID and the patient login. The form had been filled out. First name, Grace middle name, Marie last name, Halston submitted by, Caleb Halston time, 11:04 a.m. I was still under anesthesia then. I hadn't even held my baby. I didn't change the form. Not yet. I took screenshots. I emailed them to myself. I sent a copy to my sister and my friend Jenny, who's a lawyer in Raleigh. Then I called the hospital record clerk line and told them there was a parental dispute. They placed a hold on the submission right away. The next morning, the nurse told me there was some confusion about the name. She'd heard from the clerk. I told her the name was Everly, not Grace. The nurse nodded and said, "Good for you. That woman came in here acting like she was the mom." Apparently, Patrice had brought embroidered clothes, nursery decorations, even a baby bracelet. All with Grace stitched on it. Caleb hadn't told me any of this. He posted on Facebook later that night, "Welcome our little Grace Marie Halston. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, born healthy and beautiful." Over 100 likes. Patrice commented, "Named after a true woman of grace, my grandmother. She would be so proud." People tagged me. Sent me congratulatory texts. Even someone from my work sent flowers to the room with a card that said Baby Grace. I didn't answer any of them. I just kept documenting. When Caleb found out I'd paused the birth record, he lost it. "What are you doing?" he hissed. "I'm naming my daughter," I said. "You're embarrassing me," he said. "Everyone already knows her as Grace." "That's not my problem," I told him. "You made a choice without me. Now I'm making mine." He said I was being selfish. That he didn't want to humiliate his mother. That this was all just a name and it didn't mean anything. But it meant something to me. And he knew that. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just told him to leave. I had the nurses put a note in my chart, "Only mother has access to baby for the next 48 hours. I needed time. I texted Jenny and asked what legal options I had if my husband kept interfering with the records. She said I could file a formal dispute and request a hearing. She also told me I could file for partial custody with stipulations around naming rights and decisions. That's when I realized something. This wasn't just about the name. This was about power. They wanted to push me out. Make decisions without me. Tell me I was being emotional while they rewrote the story around me. I wasn't going to let that happen. And I wasn't done yet. 3 days later, I was discharged from the hospital. Caleb drove us home in silence. I held Everly in her car seat and stared out the window the whole time. My stomach still hurt from the surgery, but it was nothing compared to the pain I felt inside. When we pulled into our driveway, I saw pink balloons tied to the mailbox. The front porch was covered in decorations, streamers, a Welcome Baby Grace banner, and a wreath with the name Grace Marie spelled out in wood letters. I didn't even get out of the car. I just sat there and said, "Take it all down." Caleb said, "My mom did this. She meant well. I don't care. Take it down." He stood there, torn. Then he pulled out his phone and called her. "Mom, you need to come get your stuff," he said. "No, she's serious." "Yes." "The name. Still." He hung up, looked at me, and muttered, "You're really going through with this?" I didn't answer. I took Everly inside, upstairs, and locked the door to the nursery. That night, I slept in the guest room with the baby while Caleb stayed in our bedroom. We didn't speak. Every sound in the house felt louder, the fridge hum, the baby monitor, his footsteps pacing. The next morning, Patrice showed up. I heard her voice before I even saw her. Loud, fake cheerful. "I just brought a few things. Nothing big." I went downstairs holding Everly and found her standing in my living room with 3 large gift bags. She reached for the baby. I didn't let go. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Let me hold Grace." "Her name is Everly," I said. Patrice froze, then turned to Caleb. "You're letting her do this?" she asked. "She's the mom," he said quietly. "She has the final say." That was the first time he stood up for me. It didn't last long. Patrice put the bags down hard. "Fine," she snapped. "But if you think I'm just going to sit back while my own granddaughter is erased," I cut her off. "She's not your daughter." She's mine. She left in tears. Slammed the door so hard a picture fell off the wall. After that, everything turned to ice. Caleb started coming home later from work. He barely spoke to me. When he did, it was always about practical stuff. Diapers. Bottles. Appointments. Never the name. Never what happened. Then I found out he was talking to a lawyer behind my back. I got an email from Jenny while I was breastfeeding. Subject line, important, Caleb's lawyer reached out. She said he'd asked about parental rights and naming disputes and how to reverse a submission block. That he might be preparing to file for joint naming authority retroactively. That's when I started recording everything. Every text. Every email. Every voicemail. Every time Patrice or Caleb referred to my daughter as Grace, I documented it. I even caught Caleb whispering Grace to her one night when he thought I was asleep. That night, I told him to sleep on the couch. He didn't fight it. 3 weeks after the birth, I got a certified letter in the mail. It was from Caleb's lawyer. They were requesting a mediation meeting to resolve the ongoing naming disagreement in a way that reflects the contributions of both parents and extended family. Extended family. I laughed out loud. I called Jenny and told her to go ahead and schedule it. Then I called my sister to stay with me for a few days. Because I wasn't going into that room alone. The mediation was set for a Tuesday at 10 a.m. in a downtown office building near the courthouse. I wore plain jeans, a blouse, and no makeup. I didn't want to look dramatic. I wanted to look like a mom who was just tired and done being pushed around. Caleb showed up in a blazer and jeans. Patrice came too, even though she wasn't supposed to. She sat in the waiting area, pretending to scroll her phone but watching everything. The mediator was a woman in her 50s. Her name was Helen. She smiled politely, but you could tell she'd seen some real ugly family fights. We sat down at the table. Me, Jenny, Caleb, and his lawyer. First, Helen went over the facts. Then the lawyer spoke. Then Caleb spoke. He said he felt pressured and torn between two women. That naming our daughter Grace had been a moment of emotion, and that he hadn't meant to betray me. I stayed quiet. I waited my turn. When Helen asked me to speak, I passed her the folder I brought. Inside were screenshots. Emails. The embroidered clothes. The birth record submission showing the time and date, before I was even conscious. Pictures of the house decorations. A printout of Caleb's Facebook post. None of this was an accident, I said. He made a decision, then wrapped it in excuses. Caleb stayed quiet. Helen leaned forward and asked him, "Why did you submit the name without your wife's consent?" He rubbed his face. I didn't think she'd care that much. That was it. That was the moment I realized he didn't just cross a line, he never even saw the line. I thought mediation would help. It didn't. The session ended unresolved. But something happened after that. That same night, my sister was holding the baby when she noticed something in her diaper bag. A folded envelope. I hadn't put it there. Inside was a handwritten letter. From Patrice. She wrote, "You'll never be able to keep her from who she truly is. We already call her Grace. That's who she is to us. You're only her mother by biology. I'm her real family. The name you chose will fade. My name will last forever." I sat down. I couldn't breathe for a second. My sister took pictures of the letter. Sent it to Jenny. Sent it to me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to march into Patrice's house and throw it at her feet. But I didn't. I waited. 2 days later, I made a new appointment. Not for lawyers. Not for courts. For a DNA test. I knew Caleb was the father. That wasn't in question. But I needed it on record. Because if he was going to treat me like I didn't matter, I was going to take control of every legal step. When I told him, he flipped. "You're testing my paternity now? Seriously? You think I'm not her dad?" "No," I said. "I know you are. I just need the paperwork to prove it, because I can't count on anything else you say." He called me a monster. I didn't respond. 3 days after the results came in, I filed paperwork for full legal custody with naming rights and decision-making authority. Jenny attached everything, every screenshot, every post, the letter from Patrice. We also filed a restraining order against Patrice. Not to keep her from seeing the baby, but to stop her from contacting me directly. It was temporary. But it sent a message. Then came the blow I didn't expect. Caleb moved out. No warning. He packed a bag and went to stay with his cousin on the south side of town. I came home from the grocery store and found a note on the kitchen table. It read, "You've made this impossible. I'm stepping back before you destroy everything." I didn't cry. I just picked up Everly and held her close. For the first time in weeks, the house was quiet. But the fight wasn't over. Because 2 days after Caleb moved out, something strange happened. A nurse from St. Mary's called me. She said someone had requested to view the original birth certificate file in person. It was Patrice. She used Caleb's old hospital login, probably from when he filled out the first form, and tried to pose as him. Security flagged it. Now it was under investigation. The hospital asked if I wanted to press charges. I said, not yet. Because now I had something more powerful than anger. I had proof. And I was going to use it. After the hospital called, I sat with everything I knew. The screenshots. The letter. The voice messages. The fact that Caleb's mother had broken the law trying to access private medical records under her son's name. I printed it all and handed it to Jenny. "Now we go to court," I said. She smiled and said, "Good. Because we've got more than enough." We filed for emergency court protection of Everly's legal name and moved forward with a full custody hearing. The judge approved a temporary order barring anyone, from calling her by anything other than her legal name, which we officially submitted as Everly Jane Halston. Patrice was served at her doorstep. The woman who once posted photos of her granddaughter Grace now had a legal gag order. Caleb's cousin messaged me that night. Said Caleb was spiraling. Drinking, missing work, saying I turned everyone against him. I didn't answer. He'd already made his choice. The day of the custody hearing, Caleb walked in with a new lawyer. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept. I was calm. I wore a plain blue dress, no jewelry. Jenny walked in beside me with a black folder, thick with pages. The judge was a stern man in his 60s. He went over the case. The name issue. The early filing while I was unconscious. The hospital security report. The Facebook posts. The letter from Patrice. When it came time to speak, Caleb started crying. He said he never meant for things to go this far. That he loved our daughter. That he only wanted to honor his family. Then he tried to say I was trying to erase his role as a father. That's when Jenny stood up. She handed the judge the screenshots of Patrice's letter, along with the confirmed report from the hospital security team that she had tried to access medical records using a false identity. And this, Jenny said, was not only unauthorized, it was criminal. The judge's face went still. He turned to Caleb. "Do you condone what your mother did?" Caleb stammered. I didn't know. I didn't ask her to do that." "But you gave her your login." I don't remember. You submitted your daughter's name without your wife's knowledge while she was under anesthesia," the judge said. "Then you allowed your family to spread that name publicly. You created this mess. And now you want shared control?" Caleb looked at the floor. The judge granted full legal custody to me, including sole decision-making rights over medical care, education, and naming. Caleb was given visitation, 3 weekends a month, but he was barred from making public posts or involving his mother in any parenting decisions. But that wasn't the end. A week later, the hospital pressed charges against Patrice for violating state and federal privacy laws. She was arrested. Mugshot. Court date. All of it. Her mugshot hit the local news under the headline, "Local Woman Charged for Attempting to Illegally Access Hospital Records." The story mentioned my daughter by name. Everly. Not Grace. Her church found out. Her book club found out. Her friends found out. She called Caleb crying, asking him to fix it. He told her, "I can't." Because by then, I had already filed for divorce. The final hearing was short. Caleb didn't fight. He agreed to the terms. I think part of him hoped that if he played nice, I might still let him come back someday. But I didn't. 3 months later, I changed Everly's last name to mine. Not Halston anymore. And yes, I told the judge why. "I want no ties left to a name that was used to hurt me," I said. He granted it. Everly Jane now carries my name. Patrice moved out of state not long after her sentencing. Fined. Shamed. Alone. Caleb lost his job a month after that, apparently word of his part in the story got around. His boss's wife worked in hospital administration. Funny how small Charlotte really is. Sometimes I see his profile pop up. New usernames, new pages. No photos of Everly. He knows better now. As for me? I started over. I got therapy. I joined a support group for new moms. I took pictures of Everly in her Everly embroidered clothes and posted them proudly, not out of spite, out of truth. Because this is what happens when you try to erase a mother from her own story. You get erased instead. Forever.